Story of Saints. November 24th is the feast day of not just one saint, but over 200,000 named and unnamed Vietnamese martyrs in one of the most gruesome and horrific Christian persecution in history. Catholicism first arrived in Vietnam in 1533 by missionaries from the Franciscan and Dominican order of Portuguese walking through small towns preaching the gospel, but it wasn't until 1615 when the Jesuits established their first mission in Da Nang, Vietnam that it experienced significant growth. The Jesuits, named Francisco de Pina, Gaspar de Amaral, Antonio Barbosa, and Alexander de Rhodes, came not only with Catholic teachings, but they were also instrumental in establishing the current Vietnamese alphabet. As the poor Vietnamese people became more educated and the number of believers grew, it threatened the established order of the existing feudal system. Consequently, around the year 1630, the Le dynasty in Vietnam started executing and expelling missionaries. As an example of both the zeal of the missionaries and the people, the missionary named Alexander de Rhodes were recorded to have baptized nearly 7,000 Vietnamese during a very short time of 3 years before being expelled. But Vietnamese were very passionate believers, and for each missionaries expelled or executed, many more would rise from those who were converted. This religious struggle continued until 1753, when Emperor Quang Trung came to power. Seeing the good of a more educated society, he granted favors to the Catholic Church, allowing them to establish multiple dioceses in the country. His reign was short-lived, however, as the feudal system's thirst for power led to the worst period of Catholic persecution in history, with the calculating emperor Can Thin in 1792. Seeing the growth of Catholicism during Quang Trung's rule, Can Thin feared that it would soon overshadow his empire, and so he called for persecution of Catholics. This led many practicing Catholics to hide in the rainforest of La Vang. As they lived in seclusion from the rest of society and cramped in the small rainforest, many people became very sick. Each night, the believers would gather together under a great tree to pray for their safety and the rapid passing of the persecution. It was here that in 1798 the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared wearing the traditional Vietnamese dress, holding a child Jesus in her arms and accompanied by 2 angels. Mary told the people to boil the leaves from the tree as medicine to cure their illness, and that no one who comes to her will ever be abandoned. Mary appeared many more times in the same spot to comfort them, and from then on, Our Lady of La Vang became the patroness of Vietnam, who we celebrate today on November 22nd. The word La Vang means echoing cry, so Our Lady of La Vang means the lady who heard our echoing cry for help. After seeing the vision of Mary, many Catholics gained a renewed vigor amidst persecution, and by 1802, there were over 300,000 registered Catholics across the 3 major dioceses. Little did they realize that 18 years later, half of them would become martyrs. In 1820, Emperor Minh Mang rose to power, and seeing the common Vietnamese people has grown much more educated and religious, he feared the worst for his empire. He ordered all of the missionary to leave their area and move to the imperial city under the pretense that his empire need educated translators, but the emperor actually desired for the missionaries to stop teaching the people and evangelizing. When the missionaries refused, they were publicly humiliated and executed along with their entire extended family. It was through this gruesome display of power and corruption that in 1833, over 2,000 Vietnamese troops rose back and revolted. This was a large number, but it's still pale in comparison to the might of the empire, and so all of the troops along with many supporting laymen were executed. Emperor Minh Mang was so intent on eradicating Catholic that not only did he order for the execution of all practicing Catholics, but he also ordered for the torture of everyone who they believed had attended Mass, even once. Minh Mang issued an edict in 1939 saying, "Let us arrest and beat without mercy. Let us torture. Let us order the execution of all who refuse to trample on pictures of the cross. Let us know that refusing to trample on the pictures is rebellion. There is no need for a trial. Let us take swords, hammers, spears, anything at your hands to exterminate the blinded and stubborn. Do not let any of them escape." Following his death in 1841, Emperor Tu Duc led an even larger persecution in 1847, burning down churches and paying common people to snitch on their friends and families. From 1820 until 1861, these martyrs for their Christian belief would suffer some of the most gruesome and horrific tortures in the history of the Church. The feudal army in Vietnam was so incredibly sadistic that before they kill each person who refused to renounce the Christian faith, they would force the martyrs to step over the crucifix by dragging their mutilated body through it before executing them through horrendously painful methods. Some of these tortures include 100 lashes, disemboweled, starved to death in a cage, burned alive, branded on the forehead, locked in an oven, chop off each limb one at a time, and even splitting their body in half from the bottom up. What was so gruesome about the tortures is that the empire would round up groups of people at once and force each martyr to watch as they publicly and slowly torture their companions. The sadistic emperor treated God and the lives of these martyrs like a game of roulette, inflicting both physical and emotional damage by splitting up families and killing them, guilt-tripping the practicing Catholics. The majority of these 200,000 unnamed Vietnamese martyrs are poor, regular laypeople, with little to no money or education, and yet they willingly risk their life for their belief. It is through their martyrdom that many people in Vietnam and the rest of the world today are able to practice their faith without fear of persecution. Let us remember and give thanks to these martyrs, learning from their example to remain humble and grateful for all the privileges we currently enjoyed. In order to continue learning about a new saint every day, click the subscribe button below and ring the bell to turn on your notification. Thank you, and may God be with you always.